This is Dennis McMahon, and welcome to Positively Vermont. And my special guest today is T Hanson, the co-executive director for Philanthropies and Communications of the Vermont Garden Network. And we're going to be speaking about the Vermont Garden Network. It's quite snowy outside, but I'm sure there's all kinds of reasons why people should be thinking about gardens at this time of the year. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Dennis. Yes, I'm glad I didn't have to travel today. Zoom really came in handy. Uh, a little about myself. Well, let's see. I grew up in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region. I moved to Vermont initially in 2018, and I lived in the Mad River Valley. Loved it. My eldest of four children, my son, went to UVM and graduated, I guess 5 or 6 years ago now, and decided he loved Vermont and the Green Mountains so much that he stayed, and he's in Burlington now. So, and then I got a stint back in my hometown near Cornell, working for Extension there. So I left Vermont, but I came back 2 years ago to start this position with Vermont Garden Network.
Great. Tell us, it's a very impressive organization. It's a very impressive name to begin with. But tell us about the Vermont Garden Network, its history, and how it got started.
Sure. Well, actually, it's our 25th anniversary this year. We started in 2001 as a grassroots garden education nonprofit. It was actually in the home of the founder, Jim Flint, and it was originally called Friends of the Burlington Garden. And that's an interesting relationship for our origin because the roots were working with the city of Burlington and their community garden program to help people who didn't have a nice big backyard or even a balcony to garden in, help them get into a community garden. And then once they were there and had a little plot, educate them. We were the education partner for the city of Burlington to help Vermont residents learn how to grow healthy, nutritious vegetables. So that's how we started. We've come a long way in 25 years, but that's still essentially our mission is teaching people how to grow food. We have, in recent years, I've been here 2 years, like I said. I started in 2024, but we've really honed in. I mean, Vermont is filled with so many wonderful nonprofits,
Mhm.
so many organizations with great leadership and really helping the fabric of what makes Vermont Vermont. But we also have to be careful with the number of nonprofits not to step on each other's toes. So we, in the origins of Vermont Garden Network, we used to just teach backyard gardeners, do seminars for, at libraries and, anyone who wanted to learn some gardening tips about seed sowing or pest management or anything like that. But when we really strategically looked at the landscape of other nonprofits doing gardening education, there was a lot of overlap. And Vermont is rich with farm to school programs, nutrition education programs. Charlie Nardozzi does so many wonderful educational videos for the backyard gardener. So instead, Vermont Garden Network decided to lean into some of our strengths and pivot a little bit and focus on food justice, food access, food sovereignty. Um, that's really important to us as we look at the makeup of people moving to Vermont. There's a large immigrant and refugee population that have agrarian roots. They were farmers in the countries that they came from, but they may not know how to garden successfully in the Vermont climate. So we've been working most recently um, teaching people how to do just that.
Well, tell us a little bit about the extent of the problem that exists right now in the state with, food security and also the availability of people getting help and how the Vermont Garden Network plays into solving the problem for people.
Thanks for asking that question. I think it's really an important one. There's too many hungry people. I mean, not just in Vermont. This is a crisis. Housing crisis is nationwide, but food insecurity is also a crisis nationwide. So we are not a food bank. I mean, food banks are very, very necessary. But if you think about the teaching a lifelong skill set, it's like the teach a man to fish. We are teaching people how to grow their own food and be independent, self-sufficient. I mean, we hope they don't need us. I mean, there are folks who will come back to a couple different workshops and get hands-on experience, but the idea is the community building piece, so they can share with their family and their children, pass it on to another generation, their neighbors, their friends, all these great tips and tricks that they learned, so their network can also grow food. And then, I guess wrapped in with food insecurity, food is very expensive to buy in the grocery store. It's really, really important that all ages understand where your food comes from and connects with farmers and the people who do that hard job of growing food. I mean, Vermont is a wonderful state because they have a robust local food system, but it's the awareness, it's the visibility. A lot of people, don't have access to land. They don't have a yard, like I was saying. So the community gardens are really, really an important piece in our ability to educate people about how to grow food.
That's great. Well, in line with that, tell us about this concept of collective gardening.
It's a lovely one. It's really magical. We have a great StoryCorps NPR recent video for those who are interested. There's links
Gee,
on our
I'm
website
curious to
about the
hear
origin of
what was
collective
going
gardening.
through your
And
mind
it
at the time.
started during the pandemic. We had partnered with Skinny Pancake. They were a restaurant shut down during the pandemic, but wanted to still keep their staff employed. And I mean, you could still do outdoor events, even during COVID. So we actually got busier during the pandemic, and we hosted many Skinny Pancake workers in this concept of a huge garden, not a typical community garden 10 by 10 plot, but we thought, what if we could do this more collaboratively and do a 4,500 square foot garden that 20 people collectively managed. So, if you can't get to the garden to water one day, one of the other 20 people will take care of watering for you. And you might fill in a shift and do weeding, another day. And then, of course, at the end of the season, you share the wonderful bounty. And it's more gardening like a farmer because the scale of a larger plot, you're able to use some climate mitigation techniques like row cover if you're trying to protect a whole row of broccoli from a pest. It's so much easier to do a whole row than it is, a very small plot with just two broccoli plants, right? So it's efficiencies, but it's also that community piece, Dennis. I mean, it is magic to see 20 people who may or may not know each other, working to handle the shifts in the management of a garden and then having a huge potluck dinner at the end of it to share the harvest.
Hmm. I'm thinking of some of the small gardens you see on North Street and some on North Avenue and then going south or other parts of the state. This is a statewide project where people seem to have a lot more land than, of course, than in the city of Burlington or other cities. How do you integrate that availability of space?
Oh, well, that's interesting. I mean, we work very closely with the city of Burlington. In fact, they've been a financial supporter the last 3 years of our work. And if you look at the Burlington area community gardens, they always have a wait list for plots, and they manage a lot of community gardens. And it's hard. It's hard to secure one. So, in fact, another shout out for City of Burlington, they just completed their open space plan and looked at all the green areas where you could potentially garden. And some of it's private land holdings. I mean, churches usually have quite a lot of land, schools, universities. Um, there are places to garden other than traditional community garden plots.
Mhm.
So that's why we love this concept of collective gardening, because say in your home there's a vacant lot, that maybe a homeowners association or something like that might have access to. I mean, yes, you have to get irrigation and, infrastructure, but, the whole neighborhood could come together and do a collective garden. And it may not be the official, managed plot, but, a group of people who are so inspired could use our resources and do this on their own. They wouldn't need us necessarily to do
Mm.
it.
Well, this reminds me of things like the victory gardens and the British concept of allotments in communities, and it sounds like a good way to operate.
It is, and I do get that question about victory gardens. We feel like it's a similar concept, but we're doing it through an equity lens, and for the right climate and land stewardship reasons. There were some, historically it may not have been as equitable who was growing, but we are trying to secure land, work, with I apply for funds to try and scholarship people who are interested but don't have the money to join. Our programs are 6 months long. It's the entire growing season. You sign up for a collective garden, and it goes from March until October.
Hmm.
And it's, you take a weekly shift. So it's a long hands-on education, and it's sometimes, unaffordable for food insecure folks. So we work hard to be sure to scholarship those folks in so they have access to the same thing, um, as others.
Okay, I want to go into some of these concepts: teach, train, connect, provide, advocate, and fund. And maybe you could discuss the training and teaching what you do.
Yeah, it's definitely not classroom. We don't, I mean, I may be on Zoom with you today, but that's not the way we teach. We really believe that you got to get your hands in the dirt. You need to be out in nature. I mean, it's all the intangible benefits of being out in nature. I mean, you've heard them. There's the mental
Mhm.
health, listening to bird song, breathing in clean air. I mean, it's all so important. And then the social fabric of doing it alongside other human beings and having conversations while you do that. So teach and integration and advocacy, they all overlap and they come together in a garden space, because we not only instruct, we've got, different experience, levels of experience when we put a collective garden together. Some people who have been doing it for years. Of course, our staff has really great resources and background, but then you may get a first timer. And so it's combining that, and you learn from each other. We're not just out there being the only teachers. I mean, there's a lot to learn from your fellow gardeners as well. So it's really beautiful. And then we call it seeding power, and I mean traditionally that would be CEDE,
Mhm.
seeding power to pass on that knowledge. But in the garden world, you could also say seeding power as an SEED,
Mhm.
and seeds are magic.
That's great. Well, tell us about things like materials and equipment and seeds. How do you provide that to people?
Yeah, so this is a part of the big development work, the fundraising, that is necessary to run our nonprofit. So, I mean, we work with nurseries who donate seeds at the end of a season that they can't resell because there's an expiration date on them. We get a lot of in-kind donations of seeds, and they're
Hmm.
still viable, still great seeds. They just can't be sold. So we use a lot of those in-kind donations to give away to folks. We do all kinds of seed swaps. But back to the underserved and immigrant group of folks that we're working with, you can't just go to Gardener Supply and find African eggplant
Hmm.
or Dolly Kursani pepper. And food to a Nepali family. I mean, food unites people. It's your family dinner time. It's when you come together. And if you're going to feel at home, you need to have the ingredients and the vegetables that you're used to eating in your, native homeland. So those seeds, that's a whole different question on sourcing those. So we work with some really unique seed companies, and it's mail order. And we raise funds to purchase from them. True Love, Ujami seeds. They're all really culturally significant crops, more of a worldwide lens on what's grown. And we ask the community. I mean, if you are from the Congo, what did you grow there? What do you like to eat? And so we try and source those seeds. But then the beauty is you can save those seeds. You have a successful crop. We grew ash gourd, which is a Indian gourd, I believe, Bhutan. Um, and we successfully grew them this last season, but we don't eat them all. We, save the seeds. And so we have a whole seed saving project going on right now. And then just last year, you were asking about infrastructure and tools and equipment that it takes. We were able to open a heated greenhouse in the city of Winooski. We partnered with the Parks and Rec Department and Landry Park, where their Myers Memorial Pool is. They have a really well established garden space, community garden space, but they had enough land, a footprint that we'd been looking for years to be able to construct a greenhouse. So having a greenhouse, now we can save those seeds from the ash gourd, preserve them over the winter, but then when there's still snow on the ground in a heated greenhouse, we can plant those seeds. And then we have little plant starts that we can give away to the community who's interested in growing them in their own garden. So it's pretty special. And then, through a land stewardship perspective, it's hard to garden in Vermont. The growing season is short. And a greenhouse really helps us extend into the shoulder seasons, before the first frost and after the freeze. If you have a greenhouse that is protected, and you can control the water or the irrigation and the temperature, that makes a big difference in how successful you are to grow. So I think that that's an important aspect. And we've never had infrastructure before. We don't even have an office where all of the education staff works remote out of their homes. But then, they travel to the Intervale or the Ethan Allen Homestead or a different community garden space to conduct the workshops.
That's great. One of the things we like to do here on Positively Vermont is ask organizations, what do you need? We are in the middle of a legislative session. There's going to be the spring coming up eventually. And what do you need from the public and from legislators or people in the media?
Well, first and foremost, people like you in this program, I mean, generating awareness, we've been around 25 years and I don't want to be the best kept secret, right? I want people to tell, others about Vermont Garden Network and the work that we do. So, and then, secondly, sign up for our newsletter. Go to vtgardens.org and get on our monthly newsletter. We don't send out a lot, but that's where you'll see examples of the work or where we might need volunteers. If you're a member of City Market, they give you credit for any volunteer hours that you do with us. I mean, we don't, there's a couple feet of snow on the ground right now. We're not doing a lot. Our greenhouse isn't even open till March, but during the gardening season, there'll be plenty of ways to get involved with VGN. And then if you're a funder or run a family foundation or are interested in helping food insecure populations, please reach out. I would love to do a potential donor garden walking tour with someone who's interested in financially supporting our organization. And that could be from, any small dollar donation up to a larger grant source, because as you know, in nonprofit world, I mean, it does take money and sponsors to allow us to scholarship in and buy the equipment that we need and do pay our staff.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about some of the information that's available. Tell us about this impact report that's featured on your website.
Oh yeah, we do some people call them annual reports. It's our annual impact report, and by impact we mean who are we helping in the community? What is our impact? And we measure success by not how much revenue it brings in. I mean that we're not in business to just do revenue generation, but we really are interested in the community impact.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to our website, it's on the homepage. You can look at the last 18 months of our work. And I tried to put that together to tell the story in a visual narrative. So it's rich with pictures about the different programs that we do, shows lots of people in a garden setting, learning how to grow food. So that is a really good way for an individual who wants to learn more about our organization. It's just a magazine style flip through, and it's a good way to get a feel for the work that we do.
What types of events or programs do you have coming up in the near future that people can get involved in?
Our program calendar will start in March. So it's a little bit early right now. We're all hunkered down doing what all good gardeners do, going through seed catalogs and planting our gardens. That's the fun thing about having the winter time, because once gardens start opening, we just get so busy. So upcoming events, because it's our 25th anniversary, the way that we chose to launch a celebration is to have a year-long celebration and lots of free public workshops. So we'll have them at the greenhouse in the city of Winooski. We'll have them scattered throughout all of the Burlington area gardens. And then I'm in White River Junction, so I'm the only staff that isn't in Chittenden County. But we're hoping to have some workshops that are accessible to central and southern Vermont as well, in their neighborhoods. So the best way is to sign up for our newsletter and keep in touch to see what we'll be announcing all of our public events as soon as we start the season in March.
That's great. One thing I want to ask about is this garden directory. I think I saw that on your website. What is that about?
Yeah, it's a way. It's a way for schools and gardens that Vermont Garden Network does not manage, just to be listed in a centralized location. So, if you clicked on it, there's a map and it shows the entire state. And, if you have a school garden that you want to be part of the directory, you can contact us and we'll add it to the map. So it's really just a consolidated map of where gardens, garden activities taking place. But what's cool about it is that it's very much, statewide. There's a lot of garden activity across the state, which is just so heartwarming. A lot of people learning and growing and supporting nature and biodiversity.
That's great. And that's at vtgardens.org is the site.
Correct.
It's a very good site. There's a lot of interesting information there. And that's really wonderful. Well, and I want to thank you for appearing on Positively Vermont, and hopefully we can have you back for a progress report as the season proceeds. And anything you'd like to say to our viewers in conclusion.
Uh, that gardening is such a wonderful activity. Don't be intimidated, from planting just, one little sunflower seed. You can be successful and it brings such joy. So please get out there or on your balcony or your kitchen windowsill, grow some herbs and get involved with growing something on your own.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. My guest has been T Hanson, the co-executive director for philanthropies and communications for the Vermont Garden Network. And this has been Dennis McMahon for Positively Vermont. Thank you for watching.